Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our full review of the Hoka Mach X2. So the Mach X line is the plated trainer within the Hoka range that sits above shoes like the Hoka Mach as a fast training / do-it-all shoe that has a plate in the midsole as well as a high stack that includes some of Hoka's best foams. The Mach X2 is a fairly big update on the Hoka Mach X and it's got a higher price tag as a result. It's $190 in the US, whereas the original was $180. The original was £160. Don't have confirmed pricing for the Mach X2 in the UK yet, but I think it'll probably be £170. The new shoe is a bit lighter. It weighs 255 grams or 9 ounces in a UK size 9, whereas the Mach X was 265 grams or 9.3 ounces in the same size. The Mach X2 has a 5mm drop, which is the same at the original, but the stack height has increased by 5mm across the board. It is 44mm at the heel and 39 at the forefoot in the men's shoe, and then 42 at the heel and 37 at the forefoot in the women's shoe. So you have a higher stack, but a lighter shoe with the latest model, and that stack has been increased with PEBA foam. So it's a dual density midsole, just like the original Hoka Mach X, with the top layer being Hoka's PEBA foam, the stuff that you'll see in shoes like the Cielo and the Rocket X2, and then a bottom layer of EVA foam. With the Mach X2, the increase in stack height has come about by adding more PEBA foam into the mix, so you should get a bouncier, softer ride. You've still got a PEBA plate running through the midsole, so it's a plastic plate rather than the full carbon one to be a little less stiff and more forgiving for daily training. It's got wings at the front to add a bit more structure and stability there. Then you have Hoka's usual rocker geometry with the shoe to move you through your foot strike smoothly. One of the areas where Hoka has cut a lot of weight compared to the original shoe is in the upper, which is now this lightweight and breathable woven material with not really any padding around the tongue and collar of the shoe. Compared to the original, you can see there's a lot more padding at the back there. It had a bit more focus on comfort with the upper for sure, whereas you've got a slightly faster feeling shoe on top with the Mach X2. We've also trimmed down some of the outsole rubber as well on the new shoe. There's still pretty good coverage though, and then there are some cutouts there to help reduce the weight and show off the PEBA plate in the midsole.
So when it comes to fit, I ran in a UK 8.5, which is my regular running shoe size in Hoka, arguably. I think with the Hoka Mach X2, you're getting a very similar sort of feeling to the original Hoka Mach X, which is that these are really super snug race fit shoes if you're being kind. I feel like they're maybe a little bit too tight. You can see down here, there's enough length, that bit is fine, but when you come back into the toe box here, it's really narrowing around my toes. My little toe feels kind of squashed in. And although there is some flex in the uppers, and it does feel held like you might like in a race shoe, I think actually there's just a bit too much snugness, particularly over here on the right-hand side. And I think this kind of maybe limits how long a distance or how much time on feet I would spend in this shoe. It does feel overall a bit tight. I get okay lace lock down across the middle of the foot. It does take me a little while to kind of almost drag my foot down into the shoe and get this feeling comfortable and secure. It's not the easiest shoe to get on. Flat wrapping tongues just about kind of sit nicely. And then I think when you come back into these heel collars, there's a bit of a problem here. I'm not a huge fan of the way these sit. I can feel my heel kind of rising out of the heel collar. And this is a bit kind of pointy. It's not sharp, but it's very thin. And that was definitely a worry the first few runs I've had in it, whether that's going to cut into my heels. It hasn't, but I think over a longer distance, there's definitely potential to have some rubbing here from this heel collar package. I'm not a massive fan of that. It just doesn't quite feel like it's sitting 100% right. So in terms of sizing, I think there's a big decision in here to be made. For the way my toes are cramped here, I think I would probably have to go up half a size to get a roomier fit or a more comfortable fit. I think if I was wearing these for like a 5K or, up to an hour on feet, maybe a half marathon at a push, I'll get away with it, but it's not entirely comfortable, and I do worry about how that little toe is going to be rubbed for me. But I do have quite an issue with a little toe and quite wide feet. But yeah, so my instinct is that unless you really like it really super kind of racy and snug, I would go half a size up.
When it comes to the fit of the Mach X2, I've got my normal running shoe size here, which is UK 9, US 9.5 for Hoka, and it fits me very well. I do think this is an upper that's going to divide opinion though. I think the original Mach X had a very comfortable and supportive design with the upper. It was very much built for comfort up top, whereas the Mach X2 has got this heel design in particular that I think could end up chopping up some heels. Now, it hasn't been a problem for me at all. In fact, I really like the heel design on the shoe because it's not irritating my Achilles or anything like that. I have heel locked the shoe just in case because I was a bit worried about rubbing, but I've not had any problems with that. I do think this is a heel that might might rub some people though, so probably is worth trying it out if you possibly can. Otherwise, the upper's nice and lightweight and breathable. It does lean a bit more speed focused than the original, but I like that even in a daily trainer to have a nice lightweight upper like this. So all round, I got on very well with the fit in my normal size, but it's probably one to look out for around the hill. So I've run 75 kilometers in the Hoka Mach X2, and I'm a really big fan of this shoe. It's kind of exactly what I wanted the Hoka Mach X to be. It's a really lively, lightweight daily trainer. It's got a lot more versatility, I think, at the speedy end of things than the original Mach X, but still feels nice and comfortable for easy stuff. It really is a do-it-all shoe with a really fun and enjoyable ride. So with the original Mach X, I liked it fine, and it was quite a nice, cruisy shoe that had a good rocker and felt good for rolling through your relaxed runs, easy runs, long runs, but I really didn't feel like it had much speed in it. And when you're comparing it to other super trainers on the market, like the Endorphin Speed or the Adidas Boston, I really feel like it lacked in that regard. And while it was a comfortable shoe, it wasn't one that I really felt stood out on the market or really offered that much more than kind of training shoes, fast training shoes without a plate, like the Hoka Mach or even the New Balance Rebel. I do think the Mach X2 offers more in that regard. It's got a much bouncier ride thanks to the extra PEBA foam in the midsole. You can feel a bit more punch from the plate, and the rocker feels nice and fast, but you can still ease back and roll along at relaxed paces in the shoe. It's got a really nice amount of range. I think the only thing that would probably cut off that range in terms of easy miles would be the slightly flimsy upper at the back there, which some people might find a bit too lacking in support for easy runs, but I have really enjoyed it for that. Definitely is a shoe that gives me some of the vibes of the Cielo X1. So Hoka Cielo X1 has been one of my favorite shoes of the year. It's obviously a carbon plate racing shoe, a very expensive one at that, and I actually don't think it absolutely excels as a racing shoe compared to others because it is quite a heavy shoe. I think it's really good for longer races potentially, like the marathon, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's the fastest shoe if you're looking at shorter races, when Hoka obviously has the Rocket X2 in its lineup. But it is a shoe I've loved using for lots and lots of training. You obviously don't really want to do that in a carbon shoe. I think the Mach X2, while not being as soft and bouncy as the Cielo, does have a little bit of the feel of that shoe and the enjoyment of that shoe in a training shoe that obviously then makes it very suitable for a wider range of runs than I'd ever use the Cielo X1 for, which I've used for lots of speed workouts, but the Mach X2 you can use for relaxed runs as well. So I have done a big mix of runs in the shoe. I've done a few easy runs. I've done a couple of progression runs, moving from easy pace down to around kind of 330, 340 a K pace. I've done one track session running 2 sets of 5 times 800 meter reps. So I've put it through pretty much every pace I'm likely to run in regular weeks. Aside from going out and actually racing in it, I think it's hit all the paces and kind of workouts that I would regularly use a shoe like this for. And when I was doing those kind of easy to steady progression runs in the shoe, like it really does show off the range of the shoe, and it really feels almost perfect for that because it is a nice relaxing shoe to run along at easy paces. I found you can just tick along very smoothly. It's comfortable, kind of forget the shoe's there. It's got that really nice Hoka sensation that I get with a few of the shoes where they just kind of disappear on the foot, and then as you move through the gears you start to hit a bit more of the bounce in the shoe. You start to feel the response from the extra PEBA foam and the plate, and it just feels a bit explosive, and hitting faster paces in the shoe feels like akin to how it feels when I'm doing that in training in a full carbon shoe. It's like a nice and relaxed. My effort and heart rate is still quite low as I start to move towards those steady paces. It's not like I'm really having to push, and yeah, it ticks over very nicely. It's got a really smooth ride, bouncy ride, just everything I want in a shoe for that kind of run. Then going down the track to do those 800s. So I was doing alternating 240 and 230 800 meter reps, and that's where the shoe feels slightly laboured compared to a full carbon shoe that will give you a bit more bounce, will be a bit lighter, will be a bit more speed focused. But I did do those quite comfortably. The shoe felt good for them. It was the longest session. I ran to and from the track in the shoe as well for 5k easy, warm up and cool down, and it was great for all those different paces there. So a really accomplished all-round training shoe, and one that I find enjoyable to run in as well. I was looking at comparing it to the original Mach X. There are some people that might prefer this shoe because it is a more comfortable shoe. It's probably a little bit more stable. It's a bit cushier. The upper's certainly more comfortable. It does fulfill that role as an easy trainer better than the Mach X2, but if I'm looking at a super trainer, I'm looking for versatility in particular, and I want it to be able to do some top-end fast stuff, and I always found that a little bit laboured in the original Mach X compared to other super trainers out there. You've got that extra lightness, punch, pop from the Mach X2 that really makes it more suitable for those faster runs. Did a little run wearing both at the same time, and definitely get a bit more of a grounded feel with the Hoka Mach X, even though it is still quite a high-stack shoe itself, but you'd get a little bit more bounce and pop from the Hoka Mach X2, and it does feel like a big improvement to me for this category.
So in testing, I've done around 25 miles in the Hoka Mach X2. I've done some progression runs moving from easy up to half marathon pace. I've done some shorter runs with intervals at 5k pace. I've also thrown in the odd slower run too. All of that has been on the road. Now, I really liked the original Mach X. I know some people, I think, didn't feel it added much punch over the regular Mach 5 or the Mach 6. It was very much my kind of shoe. It was nimble, agile, snappy and responsive. Not too bouncy. There was a nice control to it, but it gave back a bit when you pushed and put some work in at the faster paces. And I really enjoyed my miles in it. The Hoka Mach X2, I think, has some big changes here, but I think it picks up that baton and moves faster with it. The new woven uppers are light and airy. They're very racy. This is a very sort of racy shoe. I'd like more width at the back of the toe box, across the toe knuckles here. But if you look for that snug hugging fast shoe fit, you're definitely going to get that here with this shoe. The combination of the 3-layer midsole, the plate and the rocker, I think really works. The landings for me are cushioned, but not lacking in ground feel. I still feel connected to that ground and in control. And the response, crucially for me, is really nice and immediate. There's a firmness or a stiffness that comes through from that PEBA plate with a springier, more propulsive edge, thanks to the increased PEBA stack you've got right across the shoe. I think it's 5 mils across the bottom. You can feel the aggressive rocker and stiff plate rolling you into a snappy toe off. This is a shoe I find that urges you to go faster and to push harder and to run in your most efficient form. And when you do, it kind of rewards you, it responds. But it's not a shoe, I think, that tries to control you. It's not sort of springing you and catapulting you. You kind of run the shoe, not the other way around. And I really like that kind of ride. When I'm landing mid to forefoot with a locked in form, I find there's a relatively reliable stability here as well. You can trust the platform on landing and it moves you through kind of quickly from sort of foot down to toe off without too much lateral wobble. I'm not 100% in love with the overall feel on the foot. I'd say it's not the most instantly comfortable. It's a little bit tight, as I mentioned, and I get a bit of foot numbness and a little bit of kind of, I don't know, everything feels a bit snug and a bit cramped in there. It's not enough to make me dislike the shoe, and I really enjoyed running it, but I am aware of it more so than some other super trainers or faster trainers. And then you probably want to take that into account when you're thinking about whether or not you use it for longer hours. I don't think I'd spend long hours in this shoe, sort of marathon distance hours. At least I'd probably kind of stick to up to 90 minutes, which is a half marathon for me. In all honesty, I think I'm more likely to use this shoe for speed and interval sessions where I'm moving for an hour max. It's the kind of shoe I'd pick for track reps and road intervals with kind of mile reps. I might even be tempted to kind of push out a 10k or half marathon race in it, although there are obviously better shoes that you might pick first, classic kind of carbon plated race shoes that would go first for that, Asics Metaspeed Sky, all those kind of things. But I think it would be a good option for some runners for racing. It's definitely got that fast kind of park run potential. Now, while it excels at fast and it doesn't have the fit for long haul comfort, it wasn't actually too shabby when I was moving low and slow either. I can personally run slow and easy in this kind of shoe. I don't require too much cushioning and too much softness. But I did a 45-minute 7k run, 11-minute miles or so, and aside from the snug fit, I found the cushion accommodating enough to get me round that run in relative comfort. I didn't feel kind of exposed when I rocked back and went slower. I also happen to think it's a pretty great looking shoe as well.
So, verdict for me is that I'm a huge fan of the Hoka Mach X2. I think it's one of the best shoes in this category of super trainer, going up against stuff like the Endorphin Speed 4. Hoka's having a really good year for me. I'm really enjoying all the shoes they're putting out, and this is another one that I think now makes a lot more sense in their lineup, sitting above shoes like the Hoka Mach, the Skyflow, and other cushion shoes you could use for easy training. They've got loads of really good easy training shoes and comfortable training shoes and fast training shoes without a plate, and now you've got a really impressive, do-it-all plated trainer that can handle a bit of everything. Well, the only concerns really I have about it being this upper at the back might chop up people's heels, but didn't chop up my heel, I'm pleased to say. It would fit very nicely in a rotation with the Cielo X1 because it does give you that similar feeling, I think, underfoot, but obviously it will fit very well with any racer in rotation if you are using a plated trainer alongside a full carbon racer. And then when you're comparing it to the other shoes in this category, obviously the big, the behemoth of this category has always been the Saucony Endorphin Speed, and the Endorphin Speed 4 I think is an amazing shoe. At the moment, I'm leaning towards the Hoka Mach X2 myself because it's got a slightly bouncier, more fun ride, and it's got more protection under the forefoot. I sometimes found the Endorphin Speed 4, if I was doing longer hard runs, I just get a bit too much snap through and get a little bit of forefoot discomfort with that shoe because it's quite a considerably lower in stack than the Hoka and has a higher drop as well. I'm going to get back in the Speed soon for a bit of a tester and do a comparison video for the two shoes, but at the moment I think I'd probably have the Hoka Mach X ahead of it and really any other shoe in the super trainer category as just the most fun do-it-all trainer out there. I think it is a little bit similar actually to the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, but just more poppy and lively and lighter for faster stuff. I think the Hyperion Max 2 is a good shoe that is quite stable and great for grinding out long miles, and it's a bit more stable than the Hoka and has a more comfortable upper. but I do think the Mach X2 is a better shoe, more explosive, more fun, and a more accomplished and versatile super trainer. Also prefer it to the Adidas Boston 12, even though that's a shoe I really like, again, just because you're getting slightly higher stack here, a bit more protection underfoot, a bit more comfort, and the Boston 12 also has some issues with the upper, so it's not really, that's an area where the Boston pulls ahead. It's also a bit too lightweight and kind of racy, that upper, I'd say. I definitely prefer it to the Puma Deviate Nitro 3, which was a shoe I just didn't really get on with very well at all. I found it a bit heavy, hasn't got the versatility of the Hoka Mach X2, hasn't got as enjoyable a ride either, I'd say. One shoe that is a bit different that you could also look at is the Mizuno Neo Vista, which is another plated super trainer, which has a really soft and bouncy ride. Like, it gears a bit more towards easy runs and very fun easy runs as a result, and it's even bouncier than the Mach X2. I have taken the Neo Vista to the track as well, and it can do that faster stuff as well, but I think the Mach X2 is a faster shoe for your speedy workouts if you're looking at one shoe to do it all. But if you are looking more for a plated shoe to use mainly for easy and long runs, the Neo Vista is a lot of fun and very bouncy, and certainly one you could consider that's a little bit cheaper than the Mach X2 as well. And then there's the Asics Super Blast, which is always tricky to compare to anything because it's a bit different to everything, really, and it is a really versatile shoe, and I think it's got similar versatility to the Hoka. Very good design, no plate in there, but still really bouncy and lightweight and fun to run in. And I think the only thing I ever have with the Super Blast is just a big shoe. It's not like it's a heavy shoe, it doesn't affect the ride that much, but it does feel a bit big, and as a runner with a high cadence, I prefer the slightly more dialed in and nimble feel of the Mach X2, and this is slightly cheaper than the Super Blast as well. Super Blast is always one to consider though. It's an amazing all-round training shoe for sure, but even though I don't really feel that the Mach X2 is necessarily that much quicker in terms of actual performance, it feels a lot quicker to me because it is a bit more small and dialed in. So yeah, I'd probably have the Mach X2 ahead there as well. So all round, great shoe, one of my favourite shoes of the year so far. Really worth checking out if you're looking for a do-it-all shoe. Just look out for that heel.
So I never got to run in the Cielo X, but if the Mach X2 really riffs off that shoe's geometry and tech, then I'm pretty sure I would like the Cielo as well, because I'm a big fan of this shoe. I think the midsole changes add up to an improved energy and a better ride versus the original Mach X. The higher stack and tweak plate have breathed some fire into the punchy midsole ride, and there's now clear daylight between this shoe and the energy of the Mach 6. There's much more super, I think, in this super trainer now, and I'd happily pick it to attack faster training efforts and even races up to the half marathon distance. I'm not convinced there's enough comfort and room for anything longer though, and I'm not 100% in love with the fit and the heel collar package here. But overall, that doesn't really undermine the performance enough to make me dislike this shoe. On those shorter, faster runs, I think it's excellent. Overall, it's a fun, energetic, speed-focused daily trainer that might be one of my favourite shoes of the year, even in spite of that kind of heel collar and the overall sort of upper comfort. It's definitely an upgrade from the Mach X. And my initial thoughts are it's peppier and punchier than the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, but much more racy and probably not quite as versatile due to that overall comfort. I'm actually going to be really interested to see how this runs side by side with the Carbon Rocket X2 as well. That's a much pricier shoe, and I wonder about how the performance compares here. You might be able to get yourself a race bargain in this Hoka Mach X now, but we'll check that out in a future run test.
That's our review of the Hoka Mach X2. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.